back at it again, and we have one with Dinesh. Let's dive in.
Quite frankly, I was a little intimidated to even debate Jesse Jackson at all because I had seen the man perform, he's a terrific speaker. He has unbelievable facility in the use of iambic pentameter. He speaks in rhymes. I may be well dressed, but I'm still oppressed. I felt kind of intimidated. But nevertheless, we got up there and we got into this debate about America, and I realized that this was a debate about our own experience. We were both talking about the way America looked to us. Now, the weird thing about it is that if I were to hold my hand up alongside his, our skin color is almost exactly the same. And yet, as we were speaking, as we were debating, I realized that we have two totally different perspectives on America. I began by saying to him, I said, Reverend Jackson, look, I don't deny that racism is real, and in a big country like America, if you look hard enough, you're going to find examples of it. I said, but show me a racism today that is strong enough to keep you or me or your kids or my daughter from achieving the American dream. Where is that kind of racism? Show it to me. Very interestingly, he replied by saying, Dinesh, I can't show it to you, but that doesn't mean anything because the racism that I'm talking about is no longer overt. It is in fact now covert. It's hidden racism. And in fact, the racism has kind of gone underground. And yet, it operates no less powerfully to keep those of us who are persons of color from achieving our American dream. Invisible racism. And as I listened to this, and I'm sitting down, and initially I thought that this was a little bit deranged. But I then began to ask myself, I think, a more interesting question. Why is it that the two of us, who look, you might say, the same, why do we see America so differently? Why is it the case, it's like two of us are sitting at a restaurant and we see an accident, it's the same fact on the ground, and yet we give two completely different and in fact contradictory accounts of it. How is that actually possible? And then I realized as I thought about that what actually seemed to be going on is something a little deeper. That in fact, what was really happening is that Jesse Jackson and I were reflecting two completely different perspectives. I'm going to call it, on the one hand, the immigrant perspective, and on the other hand, the perspective of an indigenous minority who has been in this country for a long time. Now, what is the immigrant perspective? Well, the immigrant perspective is, the immigrant is a guy who has actually lived in another country. He's actually a product of another world. And so the immigrant is in a position to compare America to some other existing society. The immigrant...
I know where he's going with this one. And I touched on this before. If he's going to say what I think he's going to say, the immigrant has a different perspective on it because he's seen what life can actually be. He's seen that life can be a hell of a lot worse, and that living in America is a great privilege and an honor. While it may not be perfect, it is a whole lot better than living in a lot of other places. But as Americans, we live in our own little box, and the rest of the world pretty much doesn't exist until we need something from it, right? So we have this mindset that, for example, the poorest in America are still among the richest in the world. I forgot the exact numbers on it. I can't quote the exact numbers on it, but the statistics play out something like that. Some of the poorest people in America, not like the dirt poor, but some of the poorest folks in America, compared to other Americans, are some of the richest people when you compare them to the rest of the world. But as Americans, we lose sight of that because we've grown accustomed to this certain level, this certain standard of living. There was a Thomas Sowell video when he touched on, I want to say Thomas Sowell and Walter Williams, rest his soul. They were speaking about how only in America could a poor person drive a Cadillac. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Only in America can a poor person drive a Cadillac. Poor people in the rest of the world don't even own a car. let alone a Cadillac. Some don't even own shoes to walk in, let alone a car. They're walking barefoot. But let's see where he goes with this.
Immigrant is not America to some other existing society. The immigrant is naturally, you might say, someone who is going to engage in this kind of actual comparison. I realized in debating Jesse Jackson that he was not actually comparing America to anything. He wasn't saying that things are really bad in America, but they're much better someplace else. In fact, if there was a standard of comparison that he was using, you'd have to call it utopia or the Garden of Eden. And basically his point was that comparing America to the Garden of Eden, perfection, America falls short.
I figured that's where he was going with it. I figured that's exactly where he was going with it. Because like I said, we've touched on this before. People's idea of what America should be is unrealistic, to say the least. Once again, is America perfect? No, it never will be. There is no perfect place on earth. That is virtually impossible to do. Somebody somewhere is going to be unhappy. Somebody somewhere is going to feel taken advantage of or something. You know what I mean? There is no perfect, right? Do y'all agree? It's impossible to create that. What does that even mean? Matter of fact, let's dive deeper. Let's go back to definition. But what does perfect even mean in terms of a country, for a country? What does that mean? How do you implement that? I don't think it's possible. But y'all let me know in the comment section. Maybe I'm totally wrong. You know, I could definitely be wrong on that. So let me know.
Comparing America to the Garden of Eden, perfection, America falls short. The immigrant, on the other hand, using a comparative or historical standard, was actually talking about other existing societies, other real countries and real ways of life. And so this appeared to be part of the reason why the two of us were seeing America so differently. It's very easy when you're born in America to say things like, all cultures are equal. This is called cultural relativism. No culture is better or worse, superior or inferior to any other. I've read this in innumerable sociology textbooks. And I would like to believe it. But I actually know that my own life is a decisive refutation of it, as is the life of every immigrant who has come voluntarily to the United States. I'm not talking about refugees who come because they have to. But any immigrant who's coming voluntarily is voting with his feet in the most decisive way possible against his own existing culture and in favor of another culture. Now remember that there is an incredible, strong, natural bias.
That's another great point as well. If America is so terrible, why are so many people voting with their feet to come to a terrible place? You have all of these privileged Americans. Oh, America's so terrible. It's oppressive. It's oppressive. It's bad, but I drive a Cadillac. It's horrible, but I have a roof over my head and food to eat and clean water to drink. It's the worst place. Oh my goodness. How could you guys run a country that's so terrible? And yet, you have a whole lot of people across this planet that are voting with their feet to come here. Must not be so terrible, huh? Crazy how that works, right? Only in America, where you have such privileged folks, hate the country that has allowed them to have such privilege. It's wild to me. You hate the place that gives you the privilege to openly hate it. Does that make any sense? I don't think it does. But hey, you know, who am I? What do I know? Y'all let me know how y'all feel about it in the comment section, please.
Against doing that. Now remember that there is an incredible, strong, natural bias against doing this. I mean, we're born into a world. It's the only world we know. It's the world of my family, my friends, my school. Everything that matters to me is in that world. What would it take for a guy like me to have to leave it and go someplace else? Why the heck would I even think of doing that if I thought that the other culture was just the same as the place I started? It's not better. It's not worse. It's only different. The very fact that I do it means I'm looking for something better. I'm voting, as I say, in the most decisive way I know how, in favor of this new culture. For me, it's better. It's a better life. And America is that kind of a magnet. The reason we're having an immigration debate is that everybody knows that if we basically take down the invisible wall, we don't really have a wall, but if we had a wall, we took the wall down, half the world would come here.
Yep.
America remains the greatest of all magnets. And that means it actually has a legitimate claim, not based on some chauvinistic proclamation, but based on the actual experience of human beings on planet Earth. It has a claim to being some kind of an exceptional society. American exceptionalism.
So, obviously he had some great points there, and I touched on a lot of that in the video, but to wrap it all up, I think it's a battle of two opposing people. You have people who don't mind working, you know, immigrants and Americans that love America, don't mind working, putting in the work. You get what you put in, you reap what you sow, those type of mindset of individuals. And then you have the freeloaders, the people who say, I deserve this, and if you don't give it to me, you are hateful. This country is terrible if you don't give it to me because I deserve it. It's the way that I see it. People who just want to freeload and be lazy. But y'all let me know how you feel about that in the comment section. It's crazy how, and once again, it's crazy how America is so terrible of a place. But as Dinesh said, if we had open immigration, half the world would come here. And the rest, the other half that didn't come, couldn't come. You know what I mean? So when that is the case, that tells you right there, it's the greatest place on earth. And it's why I don't understand, some of these politicians trying to make some of these drastic sweeping changes all the time. If it ain't broke, why are we fixing it? We can make some small tweaks here or there, but completely trying to shift the transition, the crap does that even mean? Why are we transitioning? We were good where we were. So, but hey, once again, what do I know? What do I know? It's crazy. Some of this hate, and it's disgusting. And I would encourage a lot of these folks who apparently hate America so much to go take a visit to some of these other countries. Go take a trip to China. See how their government runs. And if you don't like their government, say something bad about them. I'll see you in the next life. But as always, y'all let me know what you thought about this one in the comment section below. Like, share, comment, and of course, hit that subscribe button before you go. It's right up over there. Click that thing. Peace and love. I'm out.